and welcome back to A Safe Place. If you're new here, my name is Mariah, and I'm so glad you're here. We are currently going through the book of Daniel in the month of February in 2026 if you're watching in real time. And today we are in Daniel 5. Let's see. What's going on? Okay, so King Belshazzar rejects God's warning to repent, and Daniel interprets the writing on the wall as God's warning of imminent judgment. I love this chapter. I haven't read this in a little over a year. I am currently reading from the ESV translation, so if mine sounds or looks a little different than yours, that is why. Okay, so picking up in chapter 5. King Belshazzar made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords and drank wine in front of the 1,000. Belshazzar, when he tasted the wine, commanded that the vessels of gold and of silver that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken out of the temple in Jerusalem be bought, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought in the golden vessels that had been taken out of the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Immediately the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, opposite the lampstand. And the king saw the hand as it wrote. Then the king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him. His limbs gave way, and his knees knocked together. The king called loudly to bring in the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers. The king declared to the wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple, and have a chain of gold around his neck, and shall be the third ruler of the kingdom." Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or make known to the king the interpretation. The king Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his lords were perplexed. The queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banqueting hall, and the queen declared, "O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts alarm you or your color change. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, enchanters, Chaldeans, and astrologers, because an excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve problems were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation." Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king answered and said to Daniel, "You are that Daniel, one of the exiles of Judah, whom the king, my father, brought from Judah. I have heard of you that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the enchanters, have been brought in before me to read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they could not show the interpretation of the matter. But I have heard that you can give interpretations and solve problems. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple, and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered and said before the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king, and make known to him the interpretation. O king, the most high God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father kingship and greatness and glory and majesty, and because of the greatness that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would, he killed, and whom he would, he kept alive. Whom he would, he raised up, and whom he would, he humbled. But when his heart was lifted up, and his spirit was hardened, so that he dealt proudly, he was brought down from his kingly throne, and his glory was taken from him. He was driven from among the children of mankind, and his mind was made like that of a beast, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was fed grass like an ox, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High God rules the kingdom of mankind, and sets over it whom he will. And you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven, and vessels of his house have been brought in before you, and you and your lords, your wives and your concubines, have drunk wine from them. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or know, but the God in whose hand is your breath, and whose are all your ways, you have not honored." Then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed. I am going to butcher this. so just bear with me. Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. This is the interpretation of the matter. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and Daniel was clothed with purple, a chain of gold was put around his neck, and a proclamation was made about him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Does that scare you a little bit? Does it put the fear of the Lord in you a little bit? Because it does for me. All right, let's see. King Belshazzar repeated the sin of Nebuchadnezzar, his father, arrogance toward the holy God of Israel. God evaluated the king's leadership and gave him the opportunity to repent through Daniel's interpretation. Rather than heed Daniel's warning, Belshazzar persisted in pride, continued in his revelry, and showed contempt for the Lord. His reign ended that night because he refused to humble himself before God. God has authority over world powers and holds them accountable. What a great chapter we're reading with the state of the world right now. God is always at work, even when we can't see it. Just like the hand that wrote on the wall, God can intervene in unexpected ways and bring about change. This story encourages us to trust in God's sovereignty and timing, even when things seem uncertain or out of control. This might mean trusting God with a difficult situation or a challenge you're facing. Maybe you're feeling like you're in a Babylon of sorts, surrounded by pressures and influences that are opposed to your values and faith. But we get to remember that God is always with us. He's never going to leave us. And he can bring us out of those things. He can bring about unexpected breakthroughs and victories. Like it says in Ephesians 3:20, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. So we get to be reminded that God's power is at work in us, even if we can't see it. And he can do more than we can ever ask or imagine. And that's a powerful truth to hold on to, right? We get to rest in his sovereignty. I think a lot of times it feels like we're giving up control. We talked about that in the last episode, like submission feels like losing. But yeah, we think that giving up control is one of the worst things that we could do, or well, how will I know what's going on? Or, well, I've given control because he's going to do what he's going to do anyway. He's God. But if we don't submit to his control, we don't get to have the eyes to see what he's doing. Sometimes you do. Sometimes he writes it on the wall. He makes it so blatantly obvious because of his grace, because of his mercy. He writes it on the wall. He sends someone to interpret it. And if we don't listen, if we don't humble ourselves, then we don't get to have the eyes to see or the ears to hear, right? I think sometimes breakthrough is on the other side of submission. The things that we're asking for are on the other side of us giving up what we're supposed to give up for the day, dying to ourselves, right? So what's one area of your life where you feel like you need to trust God more? Is there a specific challenge or situation where you're struggling to see God's hand at work? I pray that today you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear all that the God of the universe is doing for you today. And I will see you back here tomorrow for chapter 6.